So we're still sorting out what's in front and what's behind. And I am going to use several brushes again. And I'm going to start with, this is a 14. And I'm going to use some little brushes. And I'm going to use, I try to be organized about this so I can keep track. This is a green handled brush. This is a brown handled brush. And this is a natural. So the brown is going to be red, this is going to be yellow, this is going to be green. Again, I'm going to start with something that's behind. And let's look at this cluster here. Uh, I think this one is behind this one. We're using cobalt, Winsor yellow, and permanent rose. But we're going to start with a very light green, not very saturated puddle. That is the green that's here. And we're going to wet the whole leaf. And it is behind this leaf. And it's, let's see, it's also behind part of this leaf. So just negative painting. I'm not bothering to cover the whole leaf, but I am painting around everything that it is behind. Now I'm going to wick up some of that paint. So to do that, I'm just making this a thirsty brush. I'm going to use my stylus to establish where the veins are in this leaf. And remember, this maple, the main veins emanate from the stem. And I'm going to just drop in some yellow and let it move. I'm going to drop in some red. Not much saturation. And I'm going to just drop it in. I'm not going to be real discreet about it. I can actually start in a dry part and drop it in and let it move. You have to do it leaf by leaf, and you have to do it while it's still that wet from that first go round. And I'm just touching the wet part, and I'm letting the color flow into it. And now I'm going to use my little brush that is green handled, but I'm going to make that my blue brush here. And it's not really a clownish sort of thing. It's just, now I'm dropping that blue up next to the red as well. And I have changed this leaf into a fall leaf. Just coming in with, gonna wet a little bit more of that so it's clearly behind this part. Now that seems kind of bright, but it won't be as it dries. So let's go to another leaf. Back to our puddle with our big brush. Let's just do a leaf that's kind of hanging out there. Because it's easier. But I will do others that are behind. Okay, let's give it some veins. Give some little side veins. Don't try and put all the veins in. Let's come in with our yellow. Let's see what it does if we give it some yellow. Again, I'm dropping the color in, I'm not brushing it on. So any mixing, any mingling is just from the natural proclivity of the paint. We are giving control to the paint. Make sure you blot your brush before you come in, so you're not coming in with like a huge bolus of paint. That was a little bit too little. Drop it in and get out of it, but don't do polka dots. And do this while everything is still wet. It's important. I like to kind of drag some of that up onto the stem too. And any place I'm dropping this blue, if there's active yellow there, it's getting greener, but I'm still seeing that blue happening. It's nice. And I want you to remember what this leaf looks like because I'm going to come back to it after it's dry and do something else that is, I think, cool. I can get a little, I don't know, friskier with this. Let's give it some more red. Remember, you are dropping this color in. You're letting the color move through the wet paint. In some cases, it's moving that wet paint out of the way. In some cases, it's mingling with it. Let's come back with a little bit of blue. All right, let's leave that one alone. Now, one of the things I try not to do is put my hand into that wet leaf. Let's come up here and think about the little airplanes for a minute. Let's get some those airplanes for this particular maple are a dark red. So let's change that red a little bit. We'll add some green. All right, this is a brush stroke thing. It's always in pairs. So big part of the stroke at the beginning goes up to a narrow part, and there we have our little airplane. Let's give ourselves another little airplane right next to it. And we can just paint right over it if we want. And mostly we're making these silhouettes. They don't have to be perfect. And I kind of like to put some drop-in color on those too, so a little bit of green. And I can put these almost any place. Okay, I can do more of those if I want to, have them as like little grace notes going on, but for now, that's enough. Just wanted you to see that brush stroke. It's, wide as you enter the paper and, curve it a bit and bring it up to a narrower end. And then the stem, there's always two of them. Okay, let's go back to what we were doing. This is a leaf. This is a leaf behind. I'll come back and do that. Let's do this top leaf. Not much saturation. We're just using this as a base. It's a big leaf, so I'm going to have to work pretty fast. Get the vein in. And now our drop in color. Let's start with the yellow again. And this one has dried already. This little lobe here. Let's wet that again. Let's come in with the blue. Use gravity. That was too blue. Let's wick some of that up. And let's come in with the red. Drop it in, let it move. I think I need more yellow. And I want to exaggerate the stem a little bit because it is in front of this back little leaf. Sometimes I have kind of random strokes that I like to treat as something that we can't quite define, but they are in front of or behind something. So like I've got right there something that doesn't belong to anything. So I'm just going to put that in a shadow, and I'll do that by making my green just a little bit darker. Doesn't have to be a lot darker. But I'm going to put that behind this, whatever that is, and behind this, whatever that is. Doesn't really matter. And maybe I'd do that with a smaller brush that works better. That has a big blue book color in it. Smaller brush, better control. And into that, I will put just plain blue to give it a little more oomph. But that just put that, whatever that is, behind things. There's other things there that I can do that with. Over here now, this is one of the things I was telling you about I wanted to do. This leaf at the very tip turns. I'm going to come in with just blue on that. And that's a leaf that's underneath. It's same leaf, but that's behind because it's turned. And I'm going to do that with the underside of this leaf. And that starts to give you that undulation of things in nature in real life. And you can do it with just a darker green or with blue, however you choose to do that. When it's just plain blue, it does it'll fade as it dries. Uh, let's see. This is the guy I wanted to come into. Let's come into that with a darker green. And a slightly different technique. I'm going to put that darker green underneath the leaf that's in front. Actually, there's two leaves that are in front of it. I'm going to bring that up a bit into the leaf proper. And then with yet another brush, I am going to come in with a thirsty brush and lose some of that edge. So that reads like a shadow on that, and it really pushes that leaf back. But I felt the need to lose that edge so it just is a cast shadow. This guy is going to need some of that same happening to it. Uh, let's see. Here's another one of those odd little forms. What will we do with that? Oh no, here's a good one. Whatever that is back there, it's behind. And we can, I have to wait till that's dry, but then this leaf is on top of this leaf. This odd shape here is behind whatever that shape is. We don't know. We're putting it behind this leaf. I think you'll be surprised if you find these little places where you don't know what the shape is that you've given yourself. And it's usually when you've got clusters. But when you shade them and make them, become a different plane with the shading, it just gives you this leaf is on top. So let's do this leaf next. Remember, always blot your brush. Now, I didn't blot my brush enough, so I have to come in with a thirsty brush, lift some of that, and keep lifting until I have a workable surface that I can easily drop paint into and not have it go all over the place. I'd like to make these little mistakes so that you know how to correct things. All right. Let's come in with our yellow. That was way too wet, but we'll work with it. And I forgot to come in and do our veins. Let's come in with our blue. And our red. It's not pigmented enough to show up much as green, but and what do we need to make that leaf more important? Let's try blue. Let's talk a little bit about the helicopters. And I call them grace notes because they are, they're not main subjects, but what they do is kind of remind you what kind of tree we're actually dealing with because those helicopters are such a familiar element when you're looking at and enjoying maple leaves. So that is, I like to, and you can put them kind of peeking out from behind other things. They don't have to start and end in the same places and ways that your leaves do. I just want to go over for a minute some of this newer stuff. And again, you can't see it as well as I want you to, but every one of these for a second go round to put things on top. This is on top of this, on top of this. For a second go round, you start with a very, well, you can start many ways. You could just wet the leaf. You wouldn't have to start with a color even. You've already got a color there as a base. I start with that green because then when I drop color into it, it's different than just red on a dry green surface. It's red that has touched a live green part, and it's a little different. But I like very much to do these piece by piece, connecting, making things make sense, all the while remembering that it is the leaves in this that are the important thing for me. This is the part that I really want to be the focus. So the stage for this is changing a little bit, but primarily the stage still is the leaves. But this cluster or this cluster, which is going to be the boss? Don't know. Don't know yet. One of them will be. But if you can, in looking at these, look at the places where I've just taken those little pieces of paint that were already there and gone in and made those darker so that they are behind something. We don't know what they are, but they make better sense now that they are behind rather than just kind of interconnected. And I do that because when you look at a mass, you're not looking at individual leaves. Your job when you paint them, though, is to do some of that differentiation, but you still don't make everything a leaf, a little single, all by itself leaf. You are, you have all that stuff going on that is beyond just leaves. So that's, I think, kind of cool to think that way. But you have to loosen your mind a bit to do that. You have to give up an absolute dependent on reality. All right, this is, everything's dry around it now. I can paint on this. This is an on top leaf. So once again, as I've chosen to do, but you don't have to do this, I am going to just come in with the light green. And remember, it has to be wet enough to stay wet while you're engineering all of this. And I don't care if I'm leaving some hard edges in here because sometimes the leaves undulate and become, places that are just, it's shadowing itself. And I've already redefined a few things happening here that weren't there before. They're strokes of paint now that I'm going to have to do something with when I come back into it after this is dry. I'm going to come in with my stylus to give this guy his veins. Some little side veins. Don't go crazy with doing everything. It's just too much. Drop in color. That's going to be blue. Blot your brush. Drop in the blue. And incidentally, if I wanted those veins to be predominantly red, which they are not in particular with this particular variety, I would have dropped in red here so that it would be the main color staining the scars. Let's drop in some red. Bought the brush. Sometimes if you add the drop in color at the edge, it is kind of an interesting thing that happens. And now let's see what happens when we add yellow last. We were starting with yellow before. Blot your brush. Drop in the color. Let it spread. Let it do something interesting for you. Kind of like this. I kind of like dropping in the yellow last. It was kind of disappearing before. But now I see places where I can use more red. And while it's wet, I can keep doing this. Hmm. Yeah, this is working. Okay, let's pick another leaf. Again, things keep drying on me, sorry. To keep remixing. We can come into this leaf now. Again, let's come in with a thirsty brush and mop some of this up. It's just too much paint. It'll dominate whatever is dropped into it. And let's follow the same sequence that we did before. Let's not forget to put in our veins. The little side veins. So first the blue, then the red. Boy, that's dry already. So this was too wet and that was too dry. Pull out your brush. And ending up with the yellow again. Once again, the drop in color, it just is still nice and vivid when you make it in these layers because it's not mixing, it's not turning into mud. It's still those individuated colors, and I like the effect of that. And if you remember, I made these into whatever they are, something behind this leaf. They are still behind that leaf, and I might even come in. Those are not wet, but I'm just gonna like impose a little shadow there so it stays behind.